Hello, everybody. Philip Lee returning with another episode of Civil War Chat. Today is the day after Christmas, 2021. Click on the subscribe button in the lower right to subscribe to future episodes, and also the notification bell in the far upper right to be notified when they're released. Today's topic is statues and traditions. Let me pull up on my notes and we'll get started. Earlier this year, I attended a Roman Catholic Mass in which the rituals by the priests were spoken in Latin. Although I am not Roman Catholic, I was drawn to the Mass out of a combination of curiosity and a general respect for tradition. During boyhood, my Roman Catholic schoolmates attended such services, and as an advocate of Confederate memorials, I also kind of value tradition. I had expected that most of the congregation would be gray-haired seniors, much like the church members of the Soviet Union after the 1960s or so. But to my surprise, the congregation was mostly composed of young families with multiple children. Moreover, the church was packed, despite the COVID-19 pandemic. It was quite crowded. Now, the Russian Orthodox Church has been going through a similar experience after the Soviet governments collapsed. Now, I felt that both phenomena were significant, but was unsure really what to make of their meeting. Then I heard a political commentator and Roman Catholic named Matt Walsh provide an analysis on his podcast. He normally just comments on recent current developments because he is a political pundit, but he's also a committed Roman Catholic. So he considered the Latin Mass newsworthy because of the latest pronouncements from the Pope, evidently intended to end the practice gradually. Like me, Walsh also observed that the congregations for such masses were typically young families. In his analysis, the appeal may be twofold. First, it provides a connection to a long tradition that goes back to at least the Council of Nicaea in the year 325. That's 1700 years. Second, it adds a mystical quality to the rituals that may help our thinking transcend from the material to the spiritual. Under such circumstances, the service may become more inspiring. Consider, for example, listening to Giuseppe Verdi's Requiem Mass in English, and that's like watching baseball in Italian. Confederate memorials can be similarly inspiring. Robert E. Lee, for example, took full responsibility for his defeat at the Battle of Gettysburg. And I've talked about this before, but it's a story worth repeating. As his troops were returning from the last attack, known as Pickett's Charge, he rode out on his horse Traveler, whom all could recognize, to meet them. There, before soldiers of all ranks, he took personal blame and gave words of encouragement to the survivors. When he got his army safely back to Virginia, he offered his resignation to President Jefferson Davis. It was declined. Contrast Lee's behavior to that of President Joe Biden, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, who blame others for the shameful evacuation from Afghanistan. They even have the gall to proclaim the most shameful military debacle that most Americans have ever witnessed in their lifetimes was actually a great success. While Lee focused on duty and stood ready to sacrifice his reputation for the greater good of his country, which at that time was the Confederacy, Biden, Austin, and Milley focused on a false obsession to root out nearly non-existent white supremacy from the military. Their delusion, at the very least, distracted them from a duty to manage America's military competently and when it got us out of Afghanistan. During the 40 years between 1973 and 2013, the percentage of military members from the South increased from 35% to 43%. whereas the fraction from all other regions of the country combined declined. Southerners have a long tradition as a warrior class that the Biden era military seeks to minimize by banning displays of Confederate symbols and dropping the names of army bases named for Confederate generals. The result is that incompetence, narrow-minded, bigoted men like Austin and Milley float to the top. In contrast, many American soldiers in the 20th and 21st century took inspiration from Confederate symbols, which helped them defeat our foes. You can find Confederate flags from the Vietnam, Korean, World War II, on up to the Gulf Wars. During World War II, for example, the first American flag to fly over the captured Japanese fortress at Okinawa was a Confederate battle flag. It was put there by a group of Marines to honor their company commander. Now, these Marines presumably were from all over the country. A company is 100 men. But they put it there to honor their company commander. He happened to be a South Carolinian who suffered a paralyzing wound during the mopping up process. He remained paralyzed for the rest of his life. So they honored him by putting the Confederate flag that he carried inside his helmet on the captured fortress. Some of the tank crews that freed prisoners from German concentration camps also flew the Confederate battle flag. The claim that Confederate statues were erected to perpetuate white supremacy is a myth, a poisonous myth. At least 5% of the white population of the 11 Confederate states from which the government drew her soldiers were killed during the Civil War. If America were to go to war presently and suffer the same death ratio, the number killed would be 17 million. That is more than 40 times the number of American deaths during World War II. Nobody with common sense would believe that the chief motive to erect memorials to 17 million dead in a hypothetical contemporary war would be anything other than to honor their memory. And for that reason, the claims by the cultural elite that Confederate statues were primarily erected to celebrate white supremacy is a reprehensible, divisive, poisonous lie. Okay, again, consider getting The Confederacy by Flood Tide by Philip Lee, Leigh, and give it 5-star rating if you like it. It really helps us out. Okay, that's our show for today, and thanks for watching.